Well, look, this is a very good result. I don't think you can make apples-to-apples comparisons across the clinical trials. They were run a little bit differently. A lot of the subjects in this clinical trial were in South Africa and Latin America, where we know there's different variants circulating that the vaccines aren't going to be as effective against, and that's probably going to read through to all the vaccines. The result, the top-line result in the United States was around 72% effective. We have to keep in mind that the variants that are circulating in the U.S. right now are also different, and there may be some differentiation that make the vaccines a little less effective. We don't know. We're not doing sequencing at scale to really answer that question. The good news about this vaccine is it's one dose. It could be delivered in an austere setting. And the immune protection that it affords seems to be pretty durable. If you look at the clinical trial data from the phase 2 study and also from this study, based on what we know, the immune cells that the vaccine was generating continued to increase for the duration of the time that they were looking at these patients. So that's a suggestion that the immune protection that it affords may be more durable. And so we're looking at, clinical trial data that tells us what happens in the first 2 or 3 months. We have to also think about what happens in 6 months or 8 months. This is an effective vaccine. The safety profile was good. I think it will be approved by the FDA, and it's a great addition to the market.
So broadly speaking, it sounds like we're worried about the South African strain in particular here. We are starting to get data, as you referenced, J&J, Novavax, Pfizer, Moderna. Overall, Dr. Gottlieb, what is your confidence level in the vaccines that we have and their ability to prevent severe disease against this mutation?
Well, look, I think we had experimental evidence before that suggested that there was a reduction in the neutralizing antibodies against these variants. So it's not a surprise to now see clinical evidence from both the Novavax trial and the J&J trial that, in fact, in the real world, in humans, in vivo, the vaccines aren't as effective against those new variants. I think the good news is that they are still effective against those variants. And so 50, 60% effectiveness is pretty good. Remember, the original clinical trial parameters that FDA laid down in terms of the approvability of a vaccine was it had to be 60% effective. And so these vaccines appear to be more effective against the South African variant, or as effective as the original parameters for approval. I mean, the good news was that the mRNA vaccines were 95% effective. The Novavax vaccine is very effective. The J&J vaccine is very effective against the wild type, against the original form of coronavirus, but they're not as effective against these new variants. We're going to have to reformulate the vaccines. We're going to have to develop boosters. We have time to do that. In the meantime, these vaccines are still going to be effective against these new variants. They're still a backstop against the spread of these variants into the United States, and we just have to get people vaccinated.
How important is it, Dr. Gottlieb, or how much of a game changer is it to have a single-dose vaccine? And will that push the J&J vaccine to the sort of top of the list, as it were, in terms of what we want to roll out and produce as quickly as possible?
My guess is that this vaccine will get thrown into the mix with the other vaccines and used in an interchangeable fashion. It's good to have a single-dose vaccine. It's good that this can be delivered in a more austere setting. It doesn't require the same kind of storage. Remember, there's going to be data coming out looking at this vaccine as a 2-dose regimen as well. And so if that data is especially strong, you could see a situation where this gets rolled out as a single-dose vaccine. But people who want to get the extra protection from a second dose could get a booster from this vaccine later on in the year, maybe in the summer, maybe in the fall. We'll see what the 2-dose data looks like. But for a single-dose vaccine to have this kind of effect, this kind of a robust effect, and see a durable immunity getting induced, which is a suggestion that it's inducing memory B cells, CD4 and CD8 cells. So it's inducing a broader complement of immune cells. That's a really good development. And Novavax data looks very good as well. It's a question of whether or not they're going to be able to file for approval on the basis of that UK study, or they'll have to wait for American data. But that looks like a vaccine that's going to be successful as well.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.